On this episode of ResiWeek, Alexa moves from the home into your office, and ADT has a lackluster IPO. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek episode 103, Alexa-claus.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by SDVOE, the platform for networked AV.
Welcome to ResiWeek. This is your weekly wrap-up of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv, and today I am pleased to be joined by one of my all-time, long-time, closest friends in the biz, Richard Fregosis. You know him as Uncle Richie. He is the principal and founder of Fregosis Design. How are you, sir?
Good. Mellow West Coast greetings in 2018. My second appearance of 2018. So.
Exactly.
Glad to be here, staying dry. At least it's not frozen. So.
Yeah, we're getting rain too. We're not frozen right now either. Last but not least, we have Tim Albright. He is the founder of AVNation and my other closest friend ever of all time.
Yeah, whatever. You're just saying that now that you buttered Richie up in that intro.
Well, yeah, I felt I had to do something of equal to you because...
Oh, here's Tim. He's just this guy.
Here's Tim.
Oh, I have a fragile ego.
Yes, you have to be careful of my fragile, ego.
It's part of my rider. It's part of my rider that I have to be introduced with glowing comments.
Just for the record, Richie had that rider before we ever had an AVNation. So
he's had that rider like for 30 years.
This is true.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to quasi flip the script slightly for this episode, and not that we're going to steer away from residential, but we're going to talk about something that started really heavily in residential and is slowly but surely making the move to commercial against arguably almost everyone in the industry. I know I've been speaking on this. Tim's been speaking on this. We've had a lot of conversations, a lot of flack from a lot of heavy hitters in the industry saying this will not happen, that voice control will not hit. It won't leave the home and make its way into the boardroom. It's overlooked. It's silly. It's ridiculous. We're having the same conversation we had about bring your own device, about Apple TV, about wireless screen sharing, all that fun stuff. We're doing it again in the commercial market, overlooking what's going on. If you just missed this was released about 2 days ago, Tim, I think.
I saw it on Friday, so maybe Friday or Thursday.
Yeah, so late last week. This is on the AWS sales server for Amazon. It is Alexa for Business. It is a lovely, glowing overview of all the fancy things that you can do with Alexa for Business. This is everything that we've been talking about for, 6 months, a year, that Alexa will make its way into the conference room. Essentially, Alexa will help you at your desk. This has been the one thing that we've been able to get a lot of AV professionals to kind of get behind is, oh yeah, it'll be good in your personal office space. But no, they will simplify your conference room. They'll help you around the workplace. They'll even add voice to your products and services in your hotel room, in any other environment down the road. Now, essentially, they've taken everything that they kind of guinea pigged on the residential environment, and different devices, different rooms, understanding where you are, geolocating you to that space in your house, and they are going to put it into the business environment. Rich, let's start with you on this one. This has been a hot topic for, especially in residential, the hot topic and the go-to holy grail of residential for a while, being able to walk into your house, into any room, and lower your shades, turn on your lights, turn your TV on. And we've been doing this. What does this mean when this is no longer I don't want to say a pie in the sky, but this is no longer a couple integrators, a couple of industry professionals saying we're going to see Alexa in the boardroom, in the conference room. This is Alexa with a fairly massive solution set page ready to go for Alexa for Business.
Well, I mean, it was bound to happen. I think is part of it, because there's no way with, and we were talking a little bit offline, off camera about this, is that, Amazon currently is the 800-pound gorilla in any industry's room at this point. It's like, okay, we're in the server business. Here comes AWS. We're in the food business. Here comes Amazon. We're in the we're in the book business. Here comes Amazon. I mean, it's Amazon at this point is able to leverage the fact that they're in so many markets that the reality is, like we were talking about a little bit earlier, is that it is something much like we saw with the BYOD movement. Years ago, when the iPad and when the iPhone were released, everybody, the first thing was, well, we're never going to have it in the boardroom. It's not secure enough. People want something dedicated. People don't want to wait for something. Or then we saw the Apple TV come into it. Well, people don't want a $99 device, and they don't want an AirPlay to it, or they won't be able to live with wireless video and the issues that come with it. And what's happened again, and we're seeing with Alexa for Business, is that software models are far more flexible, have the scalability, and are attractive to large companies far more than hardware solutions. And that's what Alexa, and that's what Amazon is betting on at this point. And really, we're saying that it's Alexa for Business. I mean, it's like Alexa-claus, right? Alexa knows when you're awake and knows when you're sleeping at this point, right?
Does it know if you've been good or bad?
At this point, it very well might be logging it. So sorry, Alexa. I already got her muted. But really what they're talking about is Alexa is just the point of the spear for Amazon Web Services to be everywhere at that point. I mean, they're publishing the API. They're creating the skill set. All of these are data points that Amazon would have the ability to leverage, that they leave open. And they say, hey, Fortune 500 company, you have some very specific instances of what you want to do in here. Well, rather than us making a hardware device that we have to kind of fit in there, here's the API. Here's the skill set that you can create for your HR department or for your company-wide meetings or for your huddle spaces, all still leveraging that same entry point, which is that echo that's in the room. And I think what's happening is that we're getting a little lost on that. We're focusing on the Alexa as what it is, but for what it is. But a big part of it is that Amazon is going to have the ability to leverage themselves with these companies to the point where other companies just can't work their way in. And so it becomes a matter for integrators on, you need to learn how to play nicely with Amazon at this point, because they are making a concerted effort to move what has traditionally been a hardware model towards a software as a service model.
So, Tim, given what Uncle Richie just said, and again, to reference what we were kind of talking about ahead of time, and the tweet parade that happened yesterday to today about video conferencing, and if you missed that on Twitter, our good friend Heather Sidorowicz under TechChi asked yesterday if we think Alexa will start. Sorry, let me get this right. Do we think Alexa voice control will start truly being utilized in the commercial space, and if so, when? And then you can read through the list of a lot of our industry friends talking about how it will, how it won't. The biggest thing that they were all kind of leaning towards was that it will not because of security. And I have not fully believed that for quite a while, just because there are some different aspects to that. And even in the residential environment, people are concerned about security. They don't want wide open recording devices running all the time. But when you look at this primer sheet, this one sheet from Amazon on their website, and you get down to their customer references, they have WeWork, which, they provide shared workspaces. It's a real millennial type accepting company. You're shaking your head. That's okay. But then you get down into the fun ones. Capital One, massive bank, Mitsui USA, massive investment and trading firm, Vonage, Brook Brothers, BMC, and I'm sure they have quite a few others, but specifically Capital One is using this. How does that argument that outside of maybe government, high-end government, DoD environments, things such as that, military installations, how does any other company that's traded, I don't really care, say that this isn't secure enough when you have companies like Capital One on board?
They don't. That's the thing is, when we read the statement from Capital One's endorsement, Alexa for Business, quote unquote, Alexa for Business allows us to publish skills for internal use only, and the Alexa for Business APIs enable us to build skill discovery and self-enrollment capabilities for our associates. Here in St. Louis, we have a pretty significant MasterCard processing center. I know a couple of the integrators here in town that have worked on that, and their security is top-notch, right? You plug anything into their network, and you have a team of IT security SWAT on you within 2 or 3 minutes. And I'm not kidding. That actually happened to a buddy of mine. So these are folks that are incredibly sensitive to security. Capital One is a significant bank, a significant credit card company that has authorized and put this into use. I said this, Richie and I went by the Amazon booth at CEDIA 2016. And afterwards, I'm like, holy crap, this is coming, right? I wrote a piece about it. I've said this in several trainings in the last year, that Amazon Alexa and voice control is coming to the corporate environment, whether you like it or not. I offered $100 to anybody in the next year who doesn't have at least one of their corporate clients ask for Alexa in their boardroom or in their corporate environment. This supersedes any of that. This is Amazon saying, yep, we're in this business now too, to Richie's point. Hey, we have servers. Great. We do too. We sell, organic food. Great. We do too. This is a massive, massive company with a massive footprint that if they want to be in your business, they're going to disrupt it. And they found ways to answer a lot of questions, including security, that is going to make them a player in our space, whether you're ready for it or not. And so what I would say is, if you don't have an Amazon Alexa, get one, find out how it works, and play with it. Depending on which control system that you like and you're capable in programming, figure out how it interacts with it. Figure out how it interacts with Crestron or with Control 4, whoever else you like to use, and get yourself schooled on what it is that they can do and what they can't do, so you can talk intelligently to your clients the next time you're in their space and they ask you, hey, I want Alexa. I have it at home and I think it'd be great here.
So when you look at and you go over kind of their facts and some of their solutions on this, they go through their conferencing solution providers. I don't know if you check that. Mm-hmm. Amazon Chime, which is their dedicated secure communication service, both video, conferencing, online meetings, calls, chat, etc. They name Crestron, they name Polycom, they name Ring Central, they name Team, they name Twine, Vonage, Zoom, the platform that we're using right now. I know I love to listen to a couple of the ESPN morning shows, especially during football season. And now I don't get any information on the Cowboys because they're long out, but I still like to listen to it. There are Zoom commercials on that every day, talking about Zoom, talking about using Alexa, using your voice to start a meeting. Rich, you have a massive background in understanding UIs, understanding GUIs, understanding how high-end residential and commercial integration works, and designing those systems, and more importantly, fixing stuff that other companies have maybe messed up. When you look at what they're doing here, and we know that Crestron, for example, has worked fairly heavily with Alexa, making this stuff function. With how much that they've bet on it, they can't be looking at it saying this is a fad. They have to be looking at this saying, this is where we're going. You can have a touch panel, and as simple as you want to make it, you can still get users who look at it and get confused. With something like this, you can literally program 100 different ways to say something, to start a meeting, to activate a specific input or a specific part of that meeting room. You can program all of that easily. Why would there be any pushback on this?
Well, I think the pushback becomes over the long term. If manufacturing partners don't find ways to make themselves part of the Alexa umbrella, what will happen is that the IT department of these large companies are going to turn around and say, wow, well, display manufacturer X, Y, and Z have said that they're now Alexa certified for business. Codec over here, like you were talking about, Zoom, some of these others, have said that they are Alexa for business certified. At that point, the companies that were relying upon integrators to install these systems, maintain these systems, program these systems, aren't necessarily going to be there. And a perfect example is, if you take a look at most of the control manufacturers, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they were primarily touch panel manufacturers. That was a big part of their income. They've all had to shift over to being media content delivery companies, right? Whether it's video over IP, audio over IP. So we're seeing what is becoming the evolution that we've been talking about, which is software's eating the world. I mean, it is a famous statement at this point. Mark Andreessen coined it several years ago. Software is going to eat the world. We're starting to see it. And I think what's happened is that, especially with what we started seeing with handheld devices and the tablet, the established control companies, the established audio video companies are saying, you know what? We're probably not going to make that same mistake twice and bet against, the BYOD market. I think that, they've gotten it. And again, really what's happened is if you take a look, where Amazon is going to rake is the fact that you pay a monthly fee per device, per user. So if you have a company with 30,000 employees, that's not a bad monthly bill that Amazon is looking at potentially trying to bring in at that point. And they've created a walled garden, whether we want to believe it or not. So, again, I think the control manufacturers are smart to say, look, this is something that we need to integrate with. This is something that we can act as facilitators for. And let's take the Alexa experience and make it more of a holistic experience where it is sight, sound, speak, touch, the whole thing, where if you do start the meeting, the touch panels are communicating. They come on your whiteboard or your whatever you happen to be using, your smart panel. All of those things start to operate in concert with one another, and we get into a true automated environment. And I think that's really where, from a resident, well, even either, but from the AV industry standpoint, these manufacturers have to look a lot closer about being part of a much larger organism, which is the space. And instead of kind of driving the space, being part of the team. And that's really what we're seeing, is that Amazon's probably going to be leading the way in a lot of these instances.
Very good. All right, let's wrap it there. Otherwise, we will talk about Amazon for the whole show. Yeah. Let's go to a story that comes to us from CE Pro and our friend Julie Jacobson. If you missed it, on the 19th of January, ADT had its first day of trading on the New York Stock Exchange. This was their IPO. Now, little primer. They were expecting and hoping to hit 17 to 19 shares at opening. Ended up offering 105 million shares for $14 a piece. But when it actually opened, they opened at $12.65 and then hit a low of 12 and closed down for the day from their initial opening. Not exactly what you want when you're doing an IPO. But more importantly, during CNBC and first on CNBC, they talked about what was to blame for the lackluster IPO from ADT. And if you kind of read into what these pundits were saying, essentially they were leaning towards the fact that this is not a growing market. This is something that is not going to be moving forward in the past, even though ADT hit most of their 5-year targets within 2 years since they were acquired. Tim, I want to start with you on this. What pundits say and how the market reacts to things, especially on an IPO, is not always indicative of what the company's doing, what that industry, what that market is doing. A lot of times there are a lot of other things at play. Maybe ADT was slightly overvalued in their IPO. Maybe the pundits just look at it and say, yeah, this is not going to continue to grow at the pace that it has. Is there a direct correlation, especially when it comes to these kind of tech companies, smart home companies? Is there a direct correlation between, an IPO or a stock price and innovation, customers, how well they're actually going to be doing in that channel?
I don't think so. And it's the reason why is the folks who are on MSNBC and financial shows like that, they're looking at the company itself, right? Let's be clear about what this was. It was an analysis of a company's performance, not necessarily entire segments. Now, some of them, alluded to the fact that they personally didn't think that the segment was going to do well. But these are folks who are looking at it from a stockholder standpoint. And let's remember what stockholders want. They want a return on their investment. So they simply didn't think that ADT was going to provide a good enough return on investment to warrant a higher IPO. Now, it's also going to be worth watching ADT over the next 6 months to a year to see how that stock performs and see how those actual stockholders and the other folks that are watching that stock think that the company is being ran. If they think the company is being ran successfully and they see a chance for revenue growth, whether that's through acquisition or through honest to goodness, customer increase, that's going to be interesting to see come December of this year or January of 2019.
Rich, ADT's been in the news a lot recently for a lot of different reasons. When we start to look at the market segment and that concept of security, home monitoring, etc., ADT has been at the forefront of this. They've also been at the forefront of larger, more expensive, slightly, potentially, depending who you talk to, kind of outdated systems. But they have a new platform that's coming to market or is at market yet. I can't remember top of my head. They're also going after Ring for their low-cost entry to this. Long and short, there are a lot of low-cost self-monitoring with some monitoring available, etc. There's a lot of those options out there and definitely coming down the pipe right now. Does that spell significant increase that in this case, pundits will be happy with? The fact that there is now or very soon, there will be a massive number of products out there that are an easier sell to more customers, more consumers, and getting those kind of people on board with this market segment?
Well, I think what we're looking at, less about ADT or Protection One or any of the other companies that have filed and have been out there, is that you're looking at markets being disrupted. ADT is one of the granddaddies of the security industry. They've been around. They grew their company over years over acquisitions. So ADT's, in the security industry, it all comes back to accounts, to monitoring, right? Number of users. When you're evaluating a security company, that's typically when a company is being bought. That's what they're valuing, what their accounts are, not their hardware or anything else that comes through it. ADT, all of the other companies, like I said, Protection One, again, why do they have these loss leader solutions that come in? Because they're figuring that you're going to be signing on for a service for 18, 24, 36 months of that recurring revenue. We have a generational shift of less people are buying homes. People are more transitory. So we're seeing these disruptive products like Ring, like Nest, like more portable solutions with limited logging. Again, less monitored than what you've seen from the security Goliaths. Users are viewing security and home protection differently. And I think what's happening with ADT and with anything else, they're looking at it and saying, yeah, it's great. It's a company. It's a security company. They're a well-financed company, and they're not going to go out of business anytime soon. But they're just not sexy. And so I think a big part of it is the pundits aren't going to really glom onto something that's sexy. I mean, security is not sexy. It's like insurance. At that point, that's really what you're focusing on. I don't think people are going to get really hot to trot over the latest State Farm offering. It's just there's certain things.
Well, it depends. Is the salesman wearing khakis?
Well, exactly.
Yeah, is it Jake? I mean, is it Jake from State
Jake from State Farm?
Yeah, Jake from State Farm. Exactly. I'd buy from. It is a vestige of the way that the industry has been. I think that they will kind of continue to just kind of move along the same way that we saw when Control 4 came out. They've just been progressively on the upswing, not a whole lot of fanfare, because a lot of times the end user doesn't necessarily understand the market nor really wants to. They just kind of view it and say, okay, that's there. From an investment standpoint, I don't know if necessarily, whoever you have tracking your investment is going to go, security is the hot place to be. So I think it gets a little underwhelming at that point.
I understand. He's saying security, not securities, right?
Yeah.
No, of course. I just want to see Jim Cramer going ape over security is not where you want to be.
No, we're more likely to see people talking about investing in banana coin than they will in
coin. Serious?
You mispronounced Bitcoin, but it's okay. We'll let it go. Cryptocurrencies are real hot right now.
Banana coin is real, baby.
Banana coin is real. It helps. Was it organic bananas?
Organic bananas based upon basically you can purchase a part of a harvest is how you value.
That's exactly what I want to do. I want
Uncle
to
Richie
purchase
coin. Uncle Richie coin. That's it.
Can I get in on the harvesting side of that?
Yeah, exactly. The sheen side. Yeah.
There you go.
You pay extra for the sheen side.
I want to gloss it up.
Exactly.
Oh, goodness. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the time we have for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Uncle Richie, thanks so much for joining us from the West Coast. Where can people connect with you?
Always great to be on. You can find me on the Twitters, on the internets, Twitter @rfragosa. You can type my name into the interwebs. It pops up. A lot of times you'll wind up seeing me either here on ResiWeek or on A State of Control, obviously supporting all of our AVNation stations.
Very good. Tim, thanks again for joining us. I always like having you on. Where can we connect with you?
You can go by the Twitters, which is TD, Tim David Albright. At this point, I'm rooting on the Blues because the Bears football season is over. So
again, that happened the second week of preseason. Yeah, pretty much. For myself, again, thank you so much for joining us. But for myself, if you'd like to follow me, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on Twitter and pretty much every other social platform. But more importantly, please stop by avnation.tv. You'll find this show as well as a wide variety of our other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the site, please take a moment to check out our underwriters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you support them as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.